every time you're talking about teams, you're talking about people. And if you can just understand how to help and develop people and what do people fundamentally want, then it's easy to support them in doing anything.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Struggle to Strength podcast, your source for real life application on how to turn your struggles into strengths in all things mind, muscle, and money. So today we have on Rudi Riekstins. He's a leadership visionary, a business mentor, and high performance coach, and has been awarded top 5 coach alongside Tony Robbins, Jim Kwik. He's been noted as a thought leader by Business Insider alongside Deepak Chopra and Joe Dispenza. Like, honestly, I don't know how we got this guy on our podcast, but I'm really glad we did. This is a phenomenal episode. That's some shit like I needed to hear.
Yeah.
Straight up. That's some shit that I needed to hear. Not like, and he made it really easy to digest. And I love that note at the end that like emotion only lasts in the body for 60 seconds. So if you're feeling an emotion for longer than that, it's because you're choosing to. And we all know there's points where we're choosing to feel certain ways.
Totally.
But you have a responsibility as an adult and as a business owner and as a partner and as a father or whatever your identity shows up as in the world. You have a responsibility to show up for the people in your life. And sometimes that means like recognizing that you're choosing to do something that's not serving you.
Yeah. And he's got just great actual like actionable tips of how to like improve that. So
we talked about a lot today. We talked about a lot alignment and energy and what that means, how we have three bodies, a physical, a mental, and an energetic, and how you can feel. Everybody knows when you feel good vibes with someone, or if you feel sketchy, like not good vibes with someone. We talked about how to control that and how to control the energy that comes from you, how to clearly communicate your position to avoid conflict. We talked about priming so that you can actually show up the way that you want to, how to retain long-term memory. What we talked about today, this was by far one of the most valuable conversations that we've had, both for me as an individual and as a business owner. So, man, I hope y'all enjoy this one. When you get to the end of it, make sure you teach someone what you learned. Make sure you apply what you learned. And, I hope it brings you as much value as it brought us. So thanks all. Thanks y'all. Wow. Can't talk. We'll see you inside. Rudi, I'm excited to dive in. I think Travis and I are probably going to be a little bit selfish in this episode because we want to learn from you and how it can relate to our businesses that we're building and what we can do to support a team environment. So I'm excited to learn more about this from you. I guess to start, I'm curious, how'd you get into this specific niche of the space? Like, what was the trajectory of your career that got you here?
So I think that's like the beauty of everything that anyone does in life. We fall into what we do. I don't think that we choose it. It kind of chooses us. And so I never intended to do this at all. But I just showed an ability to be able to shift and move teams from a really young age. And so I went into sales at 19, and within 3 or 4 months, I was leading the sales team. And then I became the trainer for the company. And then it's like, I just kept elevating teams, and then I would leave and try and do something else. And so, I've had 3 startup companies and I exited 2 of them, and I just kept getting pulled back into corporate America, developing teams. And I kept saying no, and they just kept coming back. And so it's like, it just organically found its way. And so it's been a beautiful journey. I'm excited to share what I've learned.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear it. And for the listeners, just so y'all know, Rudi, I think Rudi's being a little bit modest here, right? Like Rudi was awarded top 5 coach by Thrive Global alongside Tony Robbins and Jim Kwik. We love Jim Kwik. We love Tony Robbins too.
Yeah.
But Jim Kwik taught me how to actually remember things. So huge shout out to Jim Kwik. How long have you been doing this, man?
So I've been supporting and developing teams for around about 23 years now, going into my 23rd year. And the formula is really the same. And that's the beauty of what I want to leave you with today. It's that every time you're talking about teams, you're talking about people. And if you can just understand how to help and develop people and what do people fundamentally want, then it's easy to support them in doing anything. And I guess my greatest joy in the podcast opportunity that I have with you today is just to try and support people to understand what is their responsibility to the people around them. That doesn't mean just running a company. That's to your spouse, your children, your friends, the people you go to gym with, whatever that is. In any capacity, we're always leading. And the question we need to ask ourselves is, what are we demonstrating, and what do we want to demonstrate, and what is the result we want to drive?
Mm-hmm. I love that. And you sparked the great first question of, what do people fundamentally want?
People want to be seen, heard, valued, appreciated. They want to be respected. I think that if we were going to be talking just specifically in business, okay, people want a paycheck and they want to feel like they're doing a good job. But what they really want is to feel that when they show up, they're doing something and it's meaningful. And people are actually appreciating and valuing what they bring, whatever their unique skill set is. And so a lot of times I'll go into businesses, big or small, and I will help the organization find people's superpowers. And then if we can take that superpower and bring it into what they do at work, you're going to have the most incredible work environment and your people are going to thrive. And the results are just going to be unbelievable because people are going to want to show up to work and they're going to really value and appreciate the time. And then they have created a shift inside themselves that they're going to then want other people to experience. And so they're going to celebrate and reward other people's feelings. And that really is the beauty of it. Because, if I turned it on to you and I said, guys, what are your superpowers? What is that thing that you feel really lights you up that you could do all day, every day? And it doesn't necessarily have to mean how you make money. But if you found that one thing for you, so Josh, you talk about fitness, you talk about health, well-being, any of those areas, even if you didn't make money out of it, which you do very well. But if you didn't make money out of it, you would still be passionate about it. So my question is, if you were in a corporate environment, how could you bring in that passion for discipline, for health, for well-being, for productivity, what you're putting into your body, the value, and you bring it into your workplace? How many people would you be able to impact by doing that? And then you'd be able to measure something. You asked a really beautiful question, but I really feel that the answer to the question is, what is true fulfillment in life? And people don't ask that question enough. We go to work because we want to make money. We buy big houses because we think it's going to make us feel a certain way. But if you can create ultimate levels of fulfillment, like living the highest and greatest expression of yourself in your life at work, you're going to be the most fulfilled person you know. And what creates fulfillment? And I'm going to tell you, I've made, I think success is marginal, but I've achieved success in my life and the success has never made me fulfilled. And I've made money and I've built businesses and I've supported people. And the only time I've ever felt true fulfillment was when I supported people, when I saw other people thrive, when I saw other people achieving something. That's when I go home at night with this unbelievable feeling of joy and satisfaction and reward for what it is I've done. And if we take that and we bring that into a work environment, then we're going to just thrive organically and create an environment where people thrive.
I love that. And I think you're right. I think we are under the impression, especially in our society here in America, that when we achieve success, and success is often determined by what we own, the house we live in, the car we drive, the amount of money that's in our bank account, that we will be fulfilled. But really, it's almost like you're saying, it's the process of getting those things. It's not actually getting those things. It's what you're doing that makes you feel good about helping the world in a way that leads to those things. It's more about the journey. It's less about the destination.
I have been quoted more than once saying that true fulfillment only comes when you give selflessly of yourself every day in every single way. And, think about your life right now. And as the listener listening to this, I want you to really think about this. When you made more money, did that money actually change your life? And when you bought that car or that house, it felt good for a moment, but did it fundamentally, materially change your life? And if you think about what is your life is you in your thoughts and your feelings for the average of how you feel at any given time throughout the day. And so if you were to take a dominant snapshot of how you feel most often well, that is your life. That is how you feel. And how do you feel about the different areas of your life? And fulfillment really comes from when you're giving of yourself selflessly every day, and you feel that feeling of reward. You feel that feeling of accomplishment, of satisfaction, of encouraging someone, seeing someone thrive. And that feeling is so powerful and palpable. And no money is ever going to bring that to you. And yeah, you'll have a high for achieving something, but that high is going to truly just be that. It's going to be a momentary high, and then it's going to drop. And now what else do you have to achieve to be able to drive that dopamine hit that's going to create that next result in your life? And I'm going to tell you now, when you just turn around and help an old lady across the street, or you teach somebody a skill that you learned, or if you've taken a course and you just got so much value from it, and you picked up the phone and you called a friend and said, hey, I just learned this and I think you could value. Those are the moments that in my mind and in my life experience and what I've seen across, tremendous success through companies that I've served, is that when we create an environment and a culture of just giving back, supporting and helping other people, that's where people show up the most fulfilled. Now, I want to make sure I ground this, because we always want to know what's in it for us, right? I help people all day long because I believe it's my calling, but I also feel tremendous levels of joy, success, and fulfillment from it. But magically, the money follows. The houses and the cars and the joy, they all follow, because, we're giving the best of ourselves. And just think about when you in your life have felt the best and you've been the most aligned with who you are, you become magnetic and people want to spend time with you. And when people do that, they happen to also spend money with you. And so it's this beautiful circle, but it all starts with, what's really going to give you the most joy.
Yeah, that's so spot on. So I've noticed that recently. Like, I have a video production company, and like I've noticed that like all of my biggest and best clients, like we all, like, not only am I generally making more money with them, but we also have like a much better working relationship. It's like, it's easier, like it like flows better. It's rare that I will end up like working with somebody who is kind of like difficult to work with, has like lots of revisions to the video, doesn't know what they want, and they're also like high paying, you know what I mean? And I don't know, that's just kind of like a random thought, but I feel like that's something that I've really noticed recently. And I think, you get to be like, you get to working with those clients that are then paying more money because you are like meshing well with them and you're fun to work with. And you know what I mean? And so if I was like very like stressed about like getting the money, it's almost like it would reject the money in a way. Does that make sense?
It does. And so I actually want to touch on something that I think is really going to serve you and your audience. People don't talk about this enough. And I spend a lot of time going into corporate America, where there's 3,000 to 5,000 people in a business, and you're trying to get everyone in the business to adopt an idea, a philosophy, a goal, a vision for the business. And you need everyone to get on board with what that vision is in order to carry that across the finish line. And people think that that's going to be hard. People think that that's a challenge. And the more people you have in the business, the more diluted that's going to be. And I will tell you, it's not the case. What you were just talking about a moment ago is really about aligning what you think and feel and what you do. And then when there's more than one person, you get each person to align in what you think, feel, and then do. And we really need to understand the formula of what life is. Life is all about thoughts produce feelings. Thoughts and feelings drive all human behavior. So if you think a thought, your body's going to produce a feeling around that thought. It's a chemical that's dumped from the brain into the body, telling the body how to respond. And then you take physical actions, you respond or react a certain way, but it's always based on that formula. Thoughts produce feelings, thoughts and feelings drive behavior. When you go into a team, as you were mentioning now, you and your customers or you and your clients, or if you were in a business with 2, 3, 4, 5,000 people and you wanted to align everybody, you've got to start with the formula. How do you want people to feel? And so if you can enact an emotion out of people, it's going to produce the chemical dump that's the equivalent. And then it's going to drive that behavior. So that's why when you're working with somebody and you guys get along and you've got camaraderie and there's this back and forth and it's easy and it's pleasant, it's because you guys are all aligned on some level. You're aligned on what is the outcome. You're aligned and focused on the best possible project. You have similar thoughts, feelings, beliefs potentially. And so for those reasons, you find a really smooth, easy, symbiotic working relationship, and then it produces phenomenal results. And like you said, those are usually your high-paying clients. When you find somebody is really difficult to work with, whether it's an employee, a colleague, or a client, something is out of alignment, meaning you're both not on the same page. And I don't literally mean the project. I mean, if we go back to the formula, what you think or feel about that project, and that is driving the behavior either in the workplace or on the job that you're doing. And all you need to do is go back to the formula and say, okay, if this isn't working, why is it not working? And where can we create alignment in what it is that we do? I've offered a free book that it's actually my latest book, and I've offered it to your listeners as a leave behind if you're interested. And definitely, I will tell you, we wrote the book. I'd say I wrote the book, but we is the team that edited it down. And it took us 3 months to edit this book down to be able to be read in just 37 minutes, like the average read time. So it's get in, get out, because 80% of people don't finish books. And so I wanted to have something that somebody could sit down with on a Saturday afternoon and finish, and Monday morning already implement into their business to begin creating a powerful shift and a change. And it speaks beautifully into how do you create alignment with you as the leader, you as the creative, and then you as the people that you then bring into your business to share the vision that you want, whether that's a vision in a relationship, whether it's a health goal, or it's a company, or it's your clients. You have to align everybody on what that is and how you want the end result to be, how you want to feel about it. And it's going to absolutely drive and dictate all the results that you experience throughout that process. And so it's an invaluable tool. Before I give away too much, because I want you to read the book, let me just tell you, what most people aren't aware of is that we all have 3 bodies. We're aware of only the physical body, right? The physical structure that we have, 5'8" or whatever shape, size, and weight. But we also have a mental body. And that mental body is where we're spending all of the time creating those thoughts. And then we have an energetic body. Now, your energetic body, whether you are aware of this or not, whether this sounds crazy or not, your energetic body extends anywhere from 4 to 15 feet past you in all directions. And every time you produce a thought, it chemically alters that energetic body, and it sends this impulse out and out into the world. And so when you walk into a room, what you're feeling is actually communicating with every single person you come into contact with. So I'm going to prove it. At any point in time growing up, your parents or your caregivers, did you ever walk into a room and notice they were fighting? Oh, yeah. There was no fight, no scuff, no anything, but you could feel the tension in that room, right? We even use words like you could cut the tension literally with a knife, except tension you can't see, but we can feel it. Well, when we study human behavior, 85% to 87% of all communication is nonverbal. So what are we communicating if it's nonverbal? That's the energy, that's the cues that our body is giving off. Now, I want you to imagine if you were going to align people, you, your clients, you, your teams, you, your spouse, your family, all under a singular vision, and you align your thoughts and your feelings and your behaviors in one common goal, and you get more people to align onto the same thing, well, that's where success becomes inevitable.
Yeah. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And like, if everybody has ever done this experiment of like walking down the street, and instead of just walking down the street, kind of like smiling at everybody that you see, you'll notice that like 90% of them like brighten up and smile back. And so I feel like I've done that, like, and I've done it too, where it's like, if I'm having a bad day and I kind of feel like shit, if I do that, like, and then I see people smiling back at me, I start feeling better. I've just kind of like tested that before, and like that totally works. So I feel like that's kind of like what you're talking about a bit. It's like the thing that it affects other people within kind of like a radius of you in a way, the way you show up.
It does, but I want to take it a step further, right? So let's take what you just said, because when you put that into practice, when you smiling, even though you feel like you just said shit, and then you smile and it then evokes a smile from somebody else, right? You have an exchange. But how do we take that principle and supercharge it and then align it to drive a very specific result that we want? And this is what most people fail to do. So gentlemen, have you ever gone to go buy something? Let's think back the last time you went to buy a car. Did you like the salesperson that was selling the car, right? They were smiling. They were telling you all the things that you were experiencing, but you felt like you didn't trust them, right? They didn't have your best interests at heart. And I feel so bad. I always pick on poor car salesmen, and I don't think they're bad, but
I literally just did this the other day. So,
the reason I say that, I was telling a story, I had always, and this was years ago, I'd had a dream to have an M5, and it was like one of my goals. And then I went to go buy my M5. I went into the dealership. There it was. I said, I'll take it. And then the guy started telling me, oh, the lines of the car look like you. And oh, this and the color and the reflection of your skin. And you just was so slimy that at the end of it, I just said, I don't want the car. And I left. And it took me 3 more years to go back and buy the car. And I'm going to tell you, that was a goal of mine for a very, very long time. But he ruined the experience that I didn't actually want it anymore because, he had a sale. He just had to say, great. Here's the terms, or do you want to pay cash or you?
Cash or
card. It was a done deal. Yeah. But my point I'm making is that if you are smiling or you're saying the right things, but internally you are not honest or you don't have integrity or you're having a bad day or something, we can feel that regardless of what you're experiencing externally, we can feel that tension. And that's that energy that I'm talking about that permeates your space. And so if you are going to walk into a room and you've just had a fight with your spouse or you just had fraud on your bank account or something that no one would know about, right? It's personal to you. But you walk into a room and then you show up, you look good, you've had a shower, you've combed your hair, you brushed your teeth, you put on a nice, outfit, you look put together, but we can feel something's off. And if you don't address like, hey guys, I just need to let you know something happened in my personal life. It's not a big deal, but I'm a little frustrated today. If you don't actually clearly communicate that, people are going to process that internal conversation that you're having, that frustration, that annoyance as distrust. So they're not going to like you. And if they don't like you, they're not going to buy with you. They're not going to enjoy that. They're going to process it through their own story. They're going to think, wow, that guy doesn't like me, or that guy has an opinion about me, and it has nothing to do with them. You've just got your own personal things going on. But people forget that people, first and foremost, are people. And we all bring our stories, our traumas, our stresses, everything goes with us. But then we put on a facade of how do we want to show up. So the biggest part of, go ahead.
So how do you deal with it then? I think you started to allude to it there, but it's like, do you try to deal with it before you get in, or how do you deal with it? Do you communicate it to those people, or what do you see? Like, how do you
it depends on the situation, and every circumstance is going to be slightly different. But for the most part, what you do is you clearly communicate your position. And the work starts before you walk into the room. So as an example, I teach people a process called priming, where you close out what you've just done before you start something new. So I knew that at 11:30 a.m., I was hopping on this call. We were going to record this podcast interview. I had just been on the call with the company moments before. We were dealing with a customer service issue with that company that I was helping them resolve. So there was a lot of emotions going on there. And now I'm about to get onto a podcast. So I can't go from that conversation into this conversation. And if I don't close that conversation before starting this one, I'm actually going to bring the frustration and the anxiousness and all of the stress from that call into this. And all of your audience are going to hear that and feel that. They might not know that I had that call.
Right.
They're going to process it as, well, I just don't like that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to close that down. And so that is a really easy process. It's, taking a few deep breaths. You imagine that conversation is closing. You close the door to it. And then you say, I'm now going to open a new door. I'm going to enter into this interaction. I'm going to start clean. And so I'm simplifying the process, but really it's been a practice of learning to take really deep breaths and feel myself coming back into a very calm and centered self. And then I have this interaction, but I'm skipping a step because I get onto the podcast and I want to create an impact, right? I said to you guys at the beginning of the call today, I want to give selflessly of myself every day in every way. Well, I can't give selflessly if I just get on a podcast and I share some tips. I want to infuse and instill my intention into this call. And I do that before I get on the call with you. So I just take one moment to close the door on my previous conversation. Then I quiet my mind And then I say to myself, how do I want this audience to feel? How do I want Travis to feel when I hang up? How do I want Josh to feel when I hang up? How do I want this audience to walk away with what we've done today? And I spend a moment just feeling that. Then I'm excited, I'm motivated, and now I get on the call. So then I click the link, we start recording. And then when I hang up, well, I'm coaching another company. I've got 30 people I'm training in an hour. So I'm going to close this, and then I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to ask myself, how do I want them to feel? And that really is the process of taking personal accountability for how you show up in every room. Because if I had a fight with my son this morning because he didn't pick up his Legos or whatever that is, and then I get onto this podcast, I'm frazzled, frustrated. And again, you're going to create a narrative around that, even if you don't have the context. So if you do walk into a room and you are frustrated, or you're about to do something, whether it's a recording, a meeting, and you cannot let that go, it's just too much inside you, you could just say, hey guys, just full transparency, I want to let you know I'm a little flustered this morning because I yelled at my son, I stood on his Legos, and I'm so frustrated with myself for getting mad that I'm now thinking about how I've disappointed my son, and it's impacting how I am in this room. I'm committed to this job and what we're about to talk about, but I just need you to know that that's what's happening there so that you don't misinterpret that information. It sounds silly, but people are going to respect you significantly more, and they're going to like you and trust you more, and they'll do more business with you. Now, that example was really silly, but what if it was fraud in your bank account and somebody's just taken all the money out of your business account and you've got payroll today and you're super stressed, right? Now, how do you go into that meeting without carrying that over? But if you were just to say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, it's not impacting what we're doing, but I just want you to know in case you feel a disconnect to my energy because I'm a little frazzled. People are then going to understand that.
Do you have a way of doing that without like oversharing or like freaking people out? Because like, you know, like let's say you get into a meeting with somebody and they come in and they just start yelling at you for 10 minutes about how somebody just stole all their money, you know what I mean? And you'd be like, what is going on right now? That would be my response anyways. So I feel like there's probably kind of like I don't know. Like, I think the way you said it was just like perfect, but I think, you know, that's probably like a good distinction to make. It's like, you know, it's like, if you're in like a relationship, you know, there's a difference between like talking about what's going on and just like unloading all of your anxiety on your partner 24/7. Like those are like two different things, kind of, you know what I mean?
In your example, you gave us the distinction, right? When I shared in that example of walking into a room and saying, hey, I just need you to know before we go forward, like I'm dealing with this in my personal life or in my business. It's not going to impact what we're doing here. I'm communicating a position. What you said was if someone walks into a room and starts screaming at you, right? Those are your words. If someone walks in a room and screams at you for 10 minutes about their fraud or their bank account, well, that's totally different, right? That's not clear communication by any means. And so if we just clearly can communicate our position, people are going to understand a little bit more. Now, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. You and majority of your audience right now are thinking, hang on a minute, did he just say walk into a room and air your dirty laundry and people will trust and respect you more? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm getting at is you walk into a room, whether you air your dirty laundry or not, people are feeling it. Mm-hmm. They are feeling the energy of your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors. All of that is coming across. And then they're filtering that through their own experience. 90% of the time, they think it's about them, meaning you don't like me, right? That's how we process it. But if you were just to say, hey, man, I've prepared an unbelievable proposal for you today. I'm 100% prepared. I think you're going to love this. Just in full transparency, I just want to let you know somebody just stole my car and I'm a little frazzled, but I promise you it's not going to impact what we're doing here today. That's not airing dirty laundry. Now they're just like, holy shit, someone stole your car and you're still here. Right. Yeah, man, I'm committed to you, buddy. But you know,
it'd be like a bonding moment. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
if they've ever been through that before, like,
I think so. The thing that jumps out at me is number one, this is a learned skill, right? Like learning how to communicate effectively in this manner. It's something I've been working on personally. It doesn't come naturally at first, especially for all three of us, right? Like we were like, as men, the way we were raised, unfortunately, was hide it. Bury your feelings. Don't talk about them, right? Like, and so we were sort of raised to not do what you're saying. And so it's going to feel really awkward at first, but once you understand that being vulnerable can be a superpower, which is essentially what you're saying, then you're going to better understand the feelings and the thought processes of the people around you. And it does work. Like it does work. It's very challenging, but it does work.
I actually host full 3-day communication skills, like elevated communication skill trainings for companies. In fact, I just did one last week in New York City. And the results that come out of learning a new behavior, like you just said, it's relearning how to communicate and understanding why is there so much importance to that. I will tell you now, the statistics are insane that, 91% of people in corporate America today don't like or trust their bosses and think that they have really bad communication skills, right? So they either don't like or trust them because they don't communicate well, right? The terminology is bad communication skills. And that 81% or 83%, I forget now, of all corporate blunders are due to really bad communication. And so if you could just clear up communication a little bit, and you removed negative emotion from the work environment, or you would beautifully be able to communicate your position so that people understood you, then you could transform your business and move your business forward unbelievably. Well, let's say this. I gave an example last week where people would go into a meeting and they would say, here's my expectation, team, this, and this, and then turn around and leave. And then everybody would take their interpretation of what just happened and do their best to meet that expectation, and they would fail most of the time. And so I said to the leaders, okay, great. What if you walked into a room and you did exactly everything that you just did? And then before you turn around and leave, you said, please repeat back to me, what is your understanding of what I've just asked of you? And if you add that one thing, right, now people are regurgitating what they believe, and you're catching the gap between what you think you said and what they believe they understood. And they're actioning it right there and then and saying, no, you misunderstood. What I mean is this. And now you've got that back and forth dialogue, and then everyone leaves understanding. Communication is by far the most underutilized tool that we have in life and in business. The difference is in business, it's costing you billions of dollars, and you can't quantify what it's costing you in life. But if you can shift that communication skill, I mean, it's the most, I think, the most underutilized skill that we have.
Mm-hmm. And what you just said is another really challenging piece of communication that I've been working on. That my girlfriend is really good at this, is being able to have a thought that you would like to communicate. And most of us, and this is how I've always communicated historically, is I say the thing the way I understand it. But that doesn't mean that it comes out the way you understand it. So my girlfriend is very good at being able to adjust the verbiage and the nomenclature and the way that she delivers a thought so that it is received the way that she intends for it to be. I didn't learn that very well growing up. And so what you're saying here is just by asking people, how did you receive, what can you repeat back to me the way that you understood that? Well, now you're going to be able to identify how your words are being received to a number of different people. You're going to improve at that skill. But, that's a really hard thing to learn.
It's really not. It's really not. So let's pretend for a second.
Make it easy for me.
Yes, 100%. Let's just assign a value to it. People only ever do anything if they understand what they're going to gain. So if you're trying to motivate somebody to learn a new behavior, a skill, or to complete a project, they need to understand what is their gain in doing it. So Josh, let's pretend I told you now, every time you use that one phrase, what did you hear me say? Or what is your understanding of what I've asked of you? Every time you did that, I'd pay you $10 million. How many times do you think you would say that?
Oh God, I would say that all the time.
It's all I would say.
Yeah, that's all I would say.
Yeah, all day long. Why? Because now all of a sudden you understand what you're going to gain. But let me take away the $10, the $10 million, because obviously that's not going to happen. But what if every time you communicated, you added that at the end? People felt valued, seen, heard, appreciated. You felt valued, seen, heard, and appreciated. You also felt understood, and you removed all of those pains that you get when you ask people on your team to do something and they don't do it the way that they're supposed to, or they don't follow up the way that they're supposed to. And you clear up all of those little, really small, frustrating pain points that come up every day. Here's a really silly example. I was talking to a client, and this is one of my one-on-one corporate clients. Guy owns a massive company, and we were talking about a frustrating pain point in his personal life. We work on the business, but on one of our calls, he says, man, I've got a real problem. I really need to talk to you about it, but it's personal. He's like, do you mind if we go there? I'm like, man, we can talk about anything. What do you need help on? He goes, my wife always puts the knives in the dishwasher up, facing upwards. And I wish she would put them facing down. He's like, I've tried everything. Like, how do I get her to just put the knives down? Like, I try and demonstrate it. I've spoken to her about it, but she just always puts the knives facing upwards. And so when I'm unpacking the dishwasher, sometimes I get, like cut with a knife or poked, or I worry about my kids falling on it. He's like, dude, I need your help. How do I fix this? Right. And so I'm like, well, what have you done? And he's like, well, I've told her, don't put the knives this way. I'm like, okay, did you ask her what she understood about what you explained? He's like, well, no, because it's simple. Put the knives down. I'm like, no, it's simple to you. And you're just passing an instruction over. But what if you just said, hey, here's the reasons I don't think it's a good idea to put the knives facing upwards. We've got young kids, and what if they trip or fall or grab them? What if we put them facing downward? Would you agree to that? Do you think that that's acceptable? And then when she says yes, because she says yes, then say, what is your understanding of what we've just agreed to? Now, in that moment, she actually has to become present in that conversation. Before that, every time he's addressed it, she's just hearing him talk and she's agreeing like, but she has no intention of following through. But by asking, babe, what is your understanding of what we've just agreed to? Now she actually has to become very conscious, and she has to think about it, and then she has to make a decision. Then she says, I have agreed to, hang on, what are we agreeing to again? And now you've got to, what's the behavior going to be? People always need to understand what they're going to gain from doing something. And that's how you get them to do it.
Yeah. It reminds me of, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, like from when I was in college. And it reminds me of, we were doing a class about like education, and we were researching how studying how like the majority of the way we do school in like our, modern American society, basically it's like opposite for how you would teach somebody. Like the majority of learning going on in the classroom is by the teacher, the person who's like figuring this thing out and how to portray the information. And then you've got like 30 kids that are just zoned out, like listening to somebody blab for an hour and then they leave, versus being like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's probably like good schools that like know how to do it better, but that's like the majority of it. It's like the person getting involved in explaining is the one learning. I don't know. It just kind of reminded me.
So here's how the brain works. Like I love the brain, and I try not to talk about it because I know when I start using the brain, people tune out. So let me simplify it as easy as possible. There's only two ways to retain long-term memory. So when you're wanting to learn something, you're studying, you're only going to retain it if you teach that information somehow. So like you just gave the example, you become the teacher, or you have heightened emotion.
Yeah. Yes.
While you're learning, if you're scared or you're excited or you're motivated and you're having an emotional reaction to what you're learning, your brain's going to say that's really important and we should remember that. Or we hear something and then we immediately go and we teach it. And so a really big part of when you're wanting to move people in business, you teach a skill and then you get everyone in that room to now go and teach someone in the business what they've just learned. And for those people, that is the grounding tool that becomes the long-term memory then. So yeah, 100%.
Or you turn the classroom into like a haunted house, like jump out and scare the shit out of them like while you're teaching them.
I actually,
the first
really
one sounds better. I think that's
yeah. And I actually really like that because I will use that as a coach when I'm teaching my new athletes, how to track macros, how to track alcohol, how to, how to read a nutrition label, whatever it is. And a lot of, especially the athletes that I work with who have kids, I'm like, cool, now you can teach this to your partner and your kids. And when they do that, you're right, it becomes much more long-term attainable.
Yeah. And they also buy into the process. When you're teaching someone, you're taking ownership of information. And when you take ownership, it becomes yours in some way, shape, or form.
That's like, I'm very aware of that. And so whenever, like, I feel like I'm always explaining things to people, and I try to like dial it back, because sometimes I feel like, oh, maybe is this annoying? But it's like, man, I just need to communicate with them. Maybe it's like, hey, if you ever feel like I'm doing that, I just want you to know it's because I'm learning, and like, this is how I like learn, is to like explain shit. Like, I'm not trying to be like a know-it-all, but yeah, I just have found that that's like, in growing my business and like learning all this stuff like pretty quickly, I've really kind of gone out of my way to like help people who are like a couple steps behind me. And one, I think it helps them and it's good, but also like I've found that it really helps me get better and learn as well. So
yeah, they say you most teach what you most need to learn, and I think that is so true. And we're always only ever one step ahead of whoever we're teaching, and that's the beauty of, I guess, what we're doing.
Yeah. This has been beautiful. This has been a really, really helpful podcast for me. And like you said, I know the premise of what we're talking about and what you teach is based in business. Like, your book is how to scale your business by aligning your team with your vision. But you're right. Everybody who's listened to this podcast is likely having some ideas for how they can apply what we've learned today in their relationship with their partner, with their friends, with their family, with every other interaction that you have with the people in the world. So this has been really helpful. I mean, the priming is definitely a tool that I'll continue to work on. And then, so awesome. The priming is a huge one.
Yeah.
Is a huge one. I feel like there was someone that we spoke with recently, or you know what, maybe it was a book I read. It was it was Clarity and Connection by Young Pueblo. Great book and really easy read. And he was talking about how there's pain in the world. Like, people have pain, people have frustration, people have anxieties and hurt feelings. And a lot of that just continues to be passed around from person to person until someone is emotionally intelligent or strong enough to be able to basically handle it, to be able to stop it from continuing to spread. And that reminds me of priming. The process of priming is, things are going to happen in life that are not ideal, that are going to, come across as an adversity that you need to be able to get through, that are going to impact the way that you show up in the world. And learning how to prime yourself to not spread it to other people is going to go a long way in making impact far beyond what you could imagine, right? Because if you go into a room and you are frustrated, and then, 3 other people sense that and they think it's because of them, well, now they're going to have that same frustration or same feeling as if they're not good enough or something is wrong. They're going to impact other people. So priming is really, it almost seems like priming can massively impact not only the way you feel, the way you show up and the way you make other people feel, but like the ripple effect that comes from that.
Gentlemen, let me put it to you this way, right? I have been supporting high-performing teams for now 23 years, right? This year is my 23rd year doing it. And I have generated through my clients, by teaching simple techniques like this of approaching the person, not the business, and then touching the business. And people think, no, we need to impact the business. But we always have people, fundamentally, people are the drivers of the business. And so if we can start working with people, understanding the leaders, the people within the business, the drivers within the business, and then the experience that the clients are going to experience by doing business with us, well, we can transform everything. I mean, I have 10x really big businesses. We've taken businesses from a few $100 million to billions. We've taken startup companies to $100,000 months when they've never done more than 10,000. And we've done it in really short amounts of time. Whether you're working with one person, 10 people, 5,000 people, the formula stays the same. When the best version of each person shows up to their life and their job, keep in mind, we work 8 to 10 hours a day. So you spend more time living your life doing what you do for a living than anything else. And if you can show up as the best version of yourself, it's going to have a profound shift and impact into your business. Most of my clients hire me to come in and do a training or to do a keynote. And then they hire me as a retainer client that just stays with them to constantly tweak and shift their people because they understand that when their people show up as the best versions of themselves, the money is going to fly through. I very rarely, and my background is actually in, touching businesses, but very rarely do I have to touch product, marketing, advertising. It's always people, because the people in your business, they're the ones that are bringing in, you just touched on it beautifully, Josh. They bring their traumas in. Everything that happened to you as a child has been filtered through a formula of how you show up into the world. You touch that and you empower that, you get the best version of you in every area. When you condition anywhere from 1 to 3,000 or 1 to 5,000 people to view everything as serving them, where they take unbelievable levels of accountability and extreme ownership of what's happening in their life and in their business, you get more empowered people. You know that 75% of the human population today suffers from stress. 75% of the human population. Now, here's what makes that number really scary. Those 75% of the population are suffering from stress 75% of the time. That means every waking hour of the day, 75% of our population is under a state of heightened stress, fear, fight, or flight. When you're stressed, your brain shuts down. You cannot have logical or rational thought. If you don't have the ability to think clearly, then you're not adding any value into any room, any conversation, any idea. You can't move anything forward because you've reverted to a 7-year-old child's mind. Mm-hmm. When we remove stress and fear and anxiety by doing things like priming in a corporate environment, all of a sudden we bring logic, reason, rationale, intuition, all of that which is necessary to drive businesses forward. And that's why the companies thrive that do business with me, because they learn how to control how they feel, how they show up, and then are they aligned? Is the energetic body aligned with the emotional body? Is it aligned with the physical body? And when we can bring those together and get our team like that, that's where the fireworks take place.
Man, that's like learning how to do that. Has to be one of the most important life skills. It absolutely has to be. Everybody knows, there's a moment where they're not showing up the way that they want to, and you can recognize if you're self-aware enough, you can recognize that you are in that fear, fight, or flight state. Maybe you just say whatever you need to say to get out of that situation, because that's what your brain is telling you, to get out of that situation because you're not safe. But understanding how to align the physical, the mental, the energetic, understanding and learning how to prime. Well, now you can show up as your authentic self and you can understand how you're impacting the people around you. I'm sold on the book. I'm going to read it today. So I appreciate you coming on and explaining, what you do and how you can improve not only in business, but in relationships. This has been a phenomenal conversation, Rudi. I really appreciate you sharing your expertise. I want everybody to know where they can find you. So I know we have RudiRiekstins.com, right? And we'll have that in the show notes as well. You have your book, How to Scale Your Business by Aligning Your Team with Your Vision. Where else can we find you? I know you're on Instagram, you're on social media. Give yourself the plug, man. What do you got going on?
Honestly, I would just say I hope that this conversation has in some way, shape, or form helped you as the listener to take accountability for how you feel and how you show up in a room, and to know that you can change that. Emotion only lasts in the body for 60 seconds. And so if you are feeling crappy for longer than 60 seconds, it's because you're choosing to. And when you can be empowered to create that shift in your life, everything in your life can shift and change. Find me on my website, follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, or just book a call on my website. Myself or somebody on my team would be more than happy to serve and support you. I'm just going to tell you that I have a 10 out of 10 marriage with my wife, been married for 12 years. We've never, ever had a fight. Like touch wood, never, ever had a fight. We've had disagreements, but we've never, ever had a fight. We've never got nasty. We've never slept on a couch. We've never had to have a timeout because we apply these principles to our marriage. I have a thriving business. I have more people that need my services than I can ever service. And so my business is doing really well. And that's a 10 out of 10. And then I have an unbelievable relationship with myself, my health, my well-being, my downtime. All of these principles are so easily digestible when applied. And that's the thing I would want to leave you with is, you can hear these words and they can spark something in you, but unless you click on that button, schedule a call, read a book, practice an exercise that you've learned, it's just invaluable. And information means absolutely nothing unless you yourself apply that information. I wasn't planning to say it today, but we did, right? You just learned something. So go teach it. Tell someone about it. Go and say, hey, I learned this in this podcast today, because you're going to retain that information. And I hope you gained value from this. Guys, appreciate you so much. Thank you for the platform. I love what you're doing. Top 1% podcast, man. You guys are crushing it. And just an honor to be here. So thank you.
Thank you, Rudi. Thank you for the wise words as well. And you're right. Knowledge without application is useless. So I hope that everybody who's listened has a chance to apply what they've learned today. Thank you, Rudi, again for coming on. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in to another episode of the Struggle to Strength podcast. We will see y'all next week.